Hello dear listeners, tonight we are spending time inside a freezing winter night in the Middle Ages, together with an ordinary family inside a small home as the cold settles in and quietly takes its place. Wherever you are listening from in the world, whatever time it is right now, you can share it in the comments if you like. I really enjoy reading them. If calm, immersive stories about everyday life in the past help you relax, you can subscribe to the channel, and liking the video supports the channel more than you might think. Now, make yourself comfortable, take a slow breath, and let's stay here for a while, inside a medieval home during a long winter night. The change begins earlier than expected, the day feels shorter. The light outside fades quickly, and the air grows colder long before anyone prepares for sleep. Even while people are still awake, the cold is already present, settling slowly into the ground, into the walls of the house, and into the way everyone moves. In the Middle Ages, families noticed these changes clearly, because winter could not be ignored, and it could not be delayed. Darkness arrived early and it stayed, stretching the night into long, quiet hours. Outside, snow covers the land in uneven layers. Paths grow silent and open fields appear still and distant. The wind moves gently across the landscape, sometimes stopping, sometimes returning, never in a hurry. Sounds fade quickly in the cold air, and the world feels larger, emptier, and quieter than during the day. Against this cold stands a small medieval home, built from stone or wood, sometimes both, shaped entirely by the need to survive winter nights like this one. The walls are thick, heavy and cold to the touch, built to slow the freezing air as much as possible. The roof is low, designed to keep warmth from escaping upward, and every part of the structure serves a simple purpose. There is nothing decorative here, nothing unnecessary. Everything exists to protect the people inside from the long winter night. When the door closes, the outside cold is pushed away, not completely removed, but held back just enough. Inside, a medieval family gathers in the single room they share. Parents, children, sometimes older relatives, all living and resting together. They are not wealthy people, they are not important figures, they are ordinary families who have faced many winters before. They understand that the night will be long, that the cold will remain, and that patience matters more than resistance. A small fire burns in the hearth, kept low and carefully controlled, because fuel is valuable and must last. The fire does not fill the room with warmth, it only softens the cold slightly, creating a narrow zone where hands and feet can recover some feeling. Everyone knows how close to sit, how to angle their bodies, how to move slowly to preserve heat. These are not things discussed aloud, they are habits learned over time. A candle burns nearby, its flame small and unsteady, providing just enough light to see familiar faces and shapes. Shadows stretch along the walls, darkened by years of smoke, and move gently as the flame reacts to the air. No one watches the candle closely. It is simply part of the room, as expected as the cold itself. Darkness fills everything beyond its reach, and no one tries to fight it. The floor beneath them is cold, sometimes bare earth, sometimes wooden boards covered in places with straw or simple cloth. Comfort, as it is understood today, does not exist here. Instead, there is routine, familiarity, and acceptance. The family stays close together, not only for company, but for warmth, because body heat is one of the most reliable resources they have during winter nights. Clothing remains layered and heavy. Wool garments stay wrapped tightly around the body, and even indoors hats and thick socks are not removed. Removing layers would invite the cold to settle deeper into the body, and no one wants that. Children are guided closer to adults with simple gestures, and no one questions it. This closeness is practical, but it creates a quiet sense of safety that helps the family remain calm as the evening continues. Conversation is minimal now, voices are low, and there is little need to speak. The day's work is finished, Tools have been set aside, and bodies feel tired, not exhausted, simply ready to slow down. The rhythm of winter nights encourages stillness, and people respond naturally. Movement becomes slower, more deliberate, because unnecessary motion allows cold to creep in. The candle gradually burns lower, wax melting patently and collecting at its base. Light softens, shadows deepen, and details in the room become less distinct. No one rushes to replace the candle. Darkness is expected, and light is saved whenever possible. Eyes adjust gradually, and the room becomes less about sight and more about sensation, warmth, pressure, and sound. Outside, the temperature continues to drop, the night grows heavier, and snow remains undisturbed. Wind returns briefly, then fades again, brushing against the walls and the roof before moving on. Inside, someone adjusts a blanket. Another shifts slightly, careful not to disturb the shared warmth. These movements are slow, quiet, and practiced, the result of many nights like this one. This is how medieval families survived freezing nights, through routine, experience, and cooperation. They knew how to build homes that resisted the cold, how to dress to protect the body, and how to share space efficiently. There is no panic in this room, no sudden fear, only quiet endurance shaped by familiarity. Winter nights were difficult, but they were expected, and expectation made them manageable. The fire continues to glow softly, its warmth stored in the stones around it, even as the flame weakens. The candle grows shorter, its light dimmer, and the room settles further into darkness. Breathing becomes slower, steadier, and the house itself seems to relax, holding what warmth it can as the night stretches forward. Outside, winter holds the land firmly in its grip, fields and paths locked in cold and silence. Inside, life slows down, settles into stillness, and prepares for the long hours ahead. No one is rushing towards sleep, and no one is resisting it either. The night is allowed to unfold at its own pace, steady, quiet, and familiar. As time passes, without being measured, the family remains together, wrapped in layers close to one another, conserving energy and warmth. The cold stays present, but it no longer demands attention. It has become part of the background. The night moves forward, slowly and without urgency, and we remain here, inside this small medieval home, listening to the quiet, feeling the cold at a distance, and allowing the rhythm of winter to take over. The evening continues without any clear moment of change. There is no signal that announces the next phase of the night, only a gradual slowing that everyone in the room feels. The family remains awake, but less alert than before, their movements becoming smaller, their attention turning inward. Winter nights like this do not rush people towards sleep. Instead, they stretch time, allowing the body to slowly adjust to stillness. The fire in the hearth burns lower now, not because it is forgotten, but because it is managed carefully. No one adds more wood unless it is truly needed. Fuel must last through the night, and through many nights to come. The warmth from the fire feels weaker, but steady, and everyone knows this pattern well. It is not meant to be comforting, only sufficient, only enough to take the sharpest edge off the cold. The family adjusts their position slightly, inching closer to the source of warmth, careful not to crowd it too much. Sitting too close risks wasting heat. Moving too far invites the cold back in. These adjustments happen quietly, without discussion, guided by experience rather than thought. Winter has taught them how to read the room, how to sense warmth and cold with small movements. Clothing remains heavy and layered, wool garments pressed close to the body, sleeves pulled down, collars adjusted, every small detail contributing to warmth. No one removes layers casually, even indoors, because once warmth is lost, it is difficult to regain. Children are wrapped more tightly than adults, guided gently closer to the center of the group, their smaller bodies losing heat more quickly. This care is constant, quiet, and practical. The candle continues to burn, its flame steady but fragile, casting a soft, uneven light across the room. Shadows move slowly along the walls and floor, stretching and shrinking as the flame responds to changes in the air. The light is never bright enough to fully reveal the space. Instead, it suggests familiar shapes, edges, and faces. Darkness fills everything else, and no one finds this unsettling. It is simply how nights are meant to be. Conversation has nearly faded now. Voices grow softer until they disappear entirely. There is no awkward silence, only a shared understanding that words are no longer needed. The day has ended, tasks are complete, and nothing remains to be decided. Winter nights encourage this quiet naturally, because sound carries easily in still air, and stillness helps preserve warmth. The floor beneath them remains cold even through layers of straw and cloth. Feet are tucked in carefully, pressed against fabric or against one another when possible. Hands are kept close to the body or extended briefly toward the fire before being withdrawn again. Movement is minimal now because stillness conserves heat, and everyone understands this instinctively. Outside, the night deepens further. Snow remains untouched, and the wind passes the house slowly, brushing against the walls and roof before moving on. The cold presses inward, testing the strength of the structure, finding small gaps and weaknesses, but the thick walls hold firm. Inside, the family feels the cold as a constant presence, but not an immediate threat, something to live alongside rather than fight. The candle grows shorter, wax pooling at its base, the flame dipping lower with each passing moment. Light becomes softer, less defined, and details in the room begin to blur. Faces are recognized more by familiarity than sight, movements by sound rather than shape. Eyes adjust naturally, relying less on vision and more on memory and touch. As the evening continues, the family begins to prepare for rest. Not all at once, but gradually. Blankets are pulled closer, straw is shifted beneath simple bedding, and small adjustments are made to create the most comfortable positions possible. Beds, when they exist, are simple and shared, and when they do not, the floor becomes a resting place. Privacy is not expected. Warmth is far more important. Children are guided into positions where they are most protected, between adults close to the center of the room. Their breathing begins to slow as they relax into the warmth of the group. Adults remain awake slightly longer, listening to the quiet sounds of the house, the soft crackle of the fire, the faint movement of air. These sounds are familiar, comforting in their predictability. The fire weakens slowly, its glow fading as embers settle into ash. No one rushes to revive it. The remaining warmth stored in the stones and walls will last long enough. Fire is a tool, not a luxury, and it is used sparingly. The family trusts the house to hold what warmth it can, just as it has done many times before. Darkness becomes more complete now as the candle's light diminishes further. Eventually, it's allowed to go out, not with ceremony, but with quiet acceptance. Smoke rises briefly, then disappears into the air, leaving the room in near darkness. Only the faintest glow from the hearth remains, barely enough to suggest where it once burned. At this point, the room feels different, smaller, more contained. Without light, space becomes defined by touch, sound, and warmth rather than sight. People move carefully, if at all, relying on memory to guide small adjustments. No one speaks, no one rushes. The night has fully taken hold. Breathing becomes the most noticeable sound, slow and steady, rising and falling throughout the room. These rhythms overlap, creating a quiet pattern that fills the space. The family rests together now, bodies close, wrapped in layers, conserving heat and energy. Sleep approaches gradually, without effort, without resistance. Outside, the cold continues its steady work, covering the land in silence. Inside, the family remains sheltered, not comfortable, but protected. This balance is enough. It has always been enough. Winter nights are not about comfort. They're about endurance, about knowing how to wait. Time passes without being measured, minutes and hours blending together. The family does not think about morning or how long the night will last. Those thoughts are unnecessary. All attention rests in the present moment, in the warmth that remains, in the stillness of the room, in the shared experience of waiting through the cold. This waiting is not stressful, it is familiar, shaped by repetition and habit. Each winter night reinforces the same lessons: move slowly, stay close, conserve warmth. These lessons are not taught directly, they are absorbed through experience passed quietly from one generation to the next. As the night continues, the family remains in this shared stillness. Breathing slows further, movements stop almost entirely, and sleep begins to settle over the room. The cold remains outside, pressing gently against the walls, while inside, the house and the people within it hold steady, allowing the long winter night to continue as it always has. As the night settles further, the family becomes more aware of one another's presence, not through sight, but through warmth, sound, and subtle movement. Bodies remain close, shoulders touch lightly, and blankets overlap wherever possible. This closeness is not spoken about, it is understood, especially during freezing nights when distance means losing heat. Medieval families learned early that warmth was something shared, something created together, rather than something owned individually. The fire no longer draws much attention, its glow is faint now, steady but weak, offering reassurance rather than real warmth. The stones around the hearth hold what heat they can, slowly releasing it into the room. Everyone knows this process well. It happens every night, and the body adjusts to it without thought. Sitting still becomes easier, movement slows naturally, and the room grows quieter with each passing moment. Children are positioned carefully, guided into the warmest spaces between adults, where cold air is least likely to reach them. Smaller bodies lose heat more quickly, and everyone understands this without needing to say it aloud. Arms rest gently around them, blankets are pulled higher, and fabric is tucked in close. These actions are slow and deliberate, done with care, because sudden movement invites the cold back in. Adults remain awake, but their attention drifts. Thoughts become less defined, less urgent, as the body focuses on conserving energy. There is no reason to stay alert, no task waiting to be completed, only the long night ahead. Breathing grows slower, deeper, and more regular, filling the room with a quiet rhythm that replaces conversation. The candle, now very low, cast a dim, uneven light that barely reaches the edges of the room. Shadows soften and merge, and familiar shapes fade into darkness. People no longer rely on sight to understand their surroundings. Memory fills the gaps. They know where everything is, where everyone lies, and how far they can move without disturbing the fragile balance of warmth. The floor remains cold beneath layers of straw and cloth, but bodies adjust to it, shifting weight slowly to reduce pressure and discomfort. Knees draw closer to chests, arms tuck inward, and posture becomes compact. These positions are not chosen consciously, they emerge naturally as the body seeks to preserve heat. Winter teaches these lessons quietly, night after night. Outside, the cold continues its steady presence, pressing against the walls, the roof, and the ground beneath the house. Wind moves across the landscape in slow patterns, sometimes brushing the building, sometimes moving on without sound. Snow remains undisturbed, holding the night in stillness. Inside, the family feels this pressure only faintly, filtered through stone and wood, enough to be noticed, but not enough to disturb. As time passes, awareness shifts inward. Sounds become softer, fewer, until only breathing and the occasional movement remain. Someone adjusts a blanket, another shifts position slightly, careful not to disturb the others. These movements are brief, necessary, and quickly followed by stillness. No one wants to break the calm that has settled over the room. Warmth is uneven, stronger near the centre of the group, weaker at the edges. Those at the edges instinctively draw closer inch by inch until the balance is restored. This adjustment happens without words, guided by sensation alone. The family functions as a single unit now, responding collectively to the cold. The candle finally reaches its end, its flame flickering one last time before disappearing. Smoke rises briefly, then fades, leaving the room in near complete darkness. The absence of light is not alarming. Eyes adjust quickly, and the darkness feels familiar. Without light, the room feels smaller, more contained, and this containment brings a sense of calm. The fire's embers glow faintly, barely visible, but still present. Their warmth lingers in the stones and air, creating a subtle background heat that supports the family through the early hours of the night. Everyone trusts this process. It has worked before and it will work again. There is no need to intervene. Breathing grows slower throughout the room, deep and steady, overlapping rhythms blending into one. The family rests together now, not fully asleep, but no longer fully awake. This state, somewhere between wakefulness and sleep, is common during long winter nights, when the body transitions gradually rather than suddenly. Thoughts become scattered, then fade. The mind stops searching for stimulation, because there is none to find. Darkness removes distractions, silence removes urgency, and the cold encourages stillness. Sleep approaches slowly, without pressure, without resistance, guided by the environment rather than by intention. Occasionally someone stirs slightly, adjusting their position to regain warmth, then settles again. These moments are brief and quiet, barely noticeable, and they do not interrupt the overall calm. The body knows how to protect itself, even while resting, even while drifting towards sleep. The house remains steady around them, walls holding firm, roof shielding against the night air. It is not a comfortable place by modern standards, but it is reliable. And reliability matters more than comfort. This home has seen many winters, many nights like this one, and it continues to serve its purpose. Outside, the night deepens further, but in here time loses meaning. There are no markers to indicate how much has passed, no sounds to measure the hours. Night simply exists, stretching forward in quiet continuity. The family does not think about morning or how long they must wait. Those thoughts are unnecessary. The cold remains present, but it no longer demands attention. It becomes part of the background, a constant but manageable condition. The body adapts, focusing on conserving warmth and energy, allowing rest to take over. Sleep arrives gently, settling over the room like an additional layer, softening awareness further. As the family drifts closer to sleep, movement nearly stops. The room becomes still, except for the slow rise and fall of breathing. This stillness preserves warmth, preserves energy, and allows the night to continue without disruption. Everything feels balanced, stable, and quiet. This is how medieval families endured freezing nights, not through struggle, but through adaptation. By staying close, moving slowly, and accepting the conditions around them, they allowed the night to pass without conflict. The cold remained outside, held back by walls, shared warmth and habit. The night continues unmeasured and uninterrupted as the family rests together in the darkness, wrapped in layers, breathing steadily, allowing the long winter hours to move forward at their own pace. The night continues to deepen, not with any sudden change, but through a steady thickening of silence and cold. Inside the house, the family remains settled in close proximity, their positions now mostly fixed, shaped by warmth, habit, and the need to remain still. Nights like this encourage a kind of quiet discipline, where every unnecessary movement feels like a mistake, and stillness becomes the most reliable form of protection. The air inside the room feels heavier now, not warmer, but calmer, as if the house itself has adjusted to the cold outside. Stone and wood absorb what little warmth remains from the fire, holding it quietly, releasing it slowly. The family does not expect the room to feel comfortable. They expect it to remain stable, and stability is enough to get through the night. Breathing fills the space more clearly now, slow and measured, overlapping rhythms creating a soft background sound. No one tries to control it. The body naturally settles into a pace that conserves energy. In long winter nights, breathing becomes one of the few signs that life continues inside the dark room, steady and reliable. The fire has faded almost entirely, embers resting low in the hearth, glowing faintly before sinking further into ash. The warmth they provide is subtle, barely noticeable unless one sits very close, but even this faint heat matters. The stone surrounding the hearth remains slightly warm, and this stored warmth becomes more important than the flame itself. Medieval families understood this well. Heat was something to be stored and preserved, not consumed all at once. No one moves to revive the fire. Adding wood now would waste fuel and disturb the calm. Instead, the family relies on what remains, trusting the house and their shared warmth to carry them through the hours ahead. This trust is not blind, it is built on experience, on countless nights spent waiting quietly in the cold. The candle has long been extinguished, and the darkness inside the room is complete. Vision is no longer useful, and no one misses it. The room feels smaller without light, more contained, and this containment offers a sense of safety. People know exactly where they are, where others are resting, and how little space there is to move. Bodies remain close, shoulders touching lightly, legs drawn inwards, blankets overlapping wherever possible. The fabric is rough, heavy, and worn, but it holds warmth effectively when layered. The family adjusts occasionally, small movements made carefully, slowly, to avoid breaking the fragile balance of heat they have created. Children remain nestled between adults, their smaller forms protected by the warmth of larger bodies. Adults remain partially aware, not fully asleep yet, but no longer alert. Thoughts drift slowly, becoming less defined, less focused. There is no need to think about the next day or about the length of the night. Those concerns fade naturally as the body turns inward. Outside, the cold continues its quiet work, pressing against the house, seeping into the ground, freezing the world in place. Snow reflects faint starlight, making the night appear brighter outside than it feels inside. Wind moves gently across the landscape, sometimes brushing the walls, sometimes passing without sound. The house stands firm, resisting these forces as it was built to do. Inside, the family feels the presence of the cold without feeling threatened by it. It is a constant companion during winter, always there, always acknowledged, but rarely feared. Over time, people learn how to coexist with it, how to manage its effects through clothing, proximity, and routine. This coexistence becomes second nature. As the hours pass, the line between wakefulness and sleep becomes increasingly blurred. People drift in and out of light sleep, awareness surfacing briefly before sinking again. These transitions happen quietly, without effort, without disruption. A small movement, a deeper breath, then stillness returns. Occasionally someone shifts position to relieve pressure or restore warmth, drawing a blanket closer or adjusting their posture slightly. These movements are slow and deliberate, guided by sensation rather than thought. The body knows what it needs, and it responds without waking fully. The house itself contributes to this calm. Thick walls block most outside sounds, and the absence of light removes visual distractions. Without stimulation, the mind has little reason to remain active. Thoughts dissolve naturally, leaving only basic awareness, warmth, and the steady rhythm of breathing. Winter nights in the Middle Ages often unfolded this way, not as dramatic struggles, but as long periods of waiting and adaptation. Survival depended less on action and more on restraint, on knowing when not to move, when not to speak, when not to waste energy. Families who understood this endured the cold more easily. Time continues to pass, but it is no longer measured or noticed. There are no markers to indicate progress, no changes in light or sound to suggest how much of the night remains. This lack of measurement allows the body to relax further, releasing the need to anticipate or prepare. The cold remains steady, no longer increasing, no longer decreasing, simply present. The body adjusts to this constancy, focusing on conserving warmth rather than reacting to discomfort. Muscles remain relaxed, movements minimal, posture compact. Sleep deepens gradually, settling over the room like another layer of insulation. Breathing slows further, becoming more uniform. The family rests together now, united by warmth, habit, and the shared experience of enduring the night. Outside, the world remains frozen in silence, fields and paths unchanged, the sky dark and still. Inside, the house continues to shelter its occupants, holding back the cold just enough. The balance remains intact, fragile but reliable. This is the rhythm of a medieval winter night, slow, repetitive and quiet. It does not demand attention, it does not offer distraction, it simply continues. Families learn to accept this rhythm, to let it guide their rest rather than resist it. As the night stretches onward, the room remains still, breathing steady, warmth conserved. Nothing calls for action, nothing requires response. The cold is managed, the darkness accepted, and the long hours are allowed to pass without struggle. The night has now settled into a steady, unchanging state, where nothing new seems to happen, yet everything continues quietly. Inside the house, the family is fully adjusted to the conditions of the winter night. Bodies positioned carefully, movements reduced to almost nothing. The cold remains present, but it no longer feels sharp or surprising. It feels constant, predictable, and familiar. This familiarity makes it easier to endure, because there is no longer a need to react. The warmth inside the room is uneven, strongest where bodies are closest together, weaker near the walls and the floor. Everyone understands this instinctively, and without waking fully, people remain within the warmer centre. Blankets are layered and overlapped, heavy fabrics pressed close to the body, trapping pockets of heat wherever possible. These layers do not feel soft or comfortable, but they are effective, and effectiveness matters more than comfort during nights like this. The air inside the house feels still now, almost motionless, as if even the air has decided not to move. This stillness helps preserve warmth, because moving air carries cold with it. The family breathes slowly, deeply, each breath taken with minimal effort. Breathing itself becomes a quiet rhythm that fills the room, steady and unbroken, blending individual bodies into a single presence. The fire in the hearth is no longer visible as flame, only as faint embers hidden beneath ash. These embers release a gentle warmth that lingers in the stones and surrounding air. The heat is subtle, almost imagined, but it contributes to the overall balance of the room. Medieval families relied on this lingering warmth, understanding that fire did not need to burn brightly all night to be useful. No one stirs to tend the hearth. Doing so would require movement, effort, and exposure to cold air. Instead, the family trusts the stored warmth in the stones, the walls, and their own bodies. Trust like this comes from repetition, from nights spent learning exactly how long warmth lasts, and how to use it wisely. Darkness inside the room feels complete and settled. Without light, the space becomes defined by sound and touch rather than sight. People know where they are without looking, guided by the memory and habit. The absence of light removes distractions, allowing the mind to slow further. Thoughts drift lazily, no longer forming clear ideas, no longer demanding attention. Occasionally a small sound breaks the silence, a blanket shifting, a quiet breath changing rhythm, a subtle adjustment of posture. These sounds are soft and brief, never enough to disrupt the calm. Each movement is followed by stillness, as if the room itself encourages restraint. The cold outside continues to press against the house, but inside it feels distant now, filtered through thick walls and shared warmth. Wind brushes against the structure, sometimes audible, sometimes not, depending on its direction and strength. Snow remains unmoving, holding the night in a quiet, frozen state. Inside, none of this demands response. As time passes, the family drifts deeper into rest, not fully asleep, but no longer awake in any meaningful way. This state is common during long winter nights, when sleep comes gradually and unevenly. Awareness surfaces briefly, then sinks again, without effort, without concern. Children sleep more deeply now, their breathing slower and more regular. Adults remain lightly aware, bodies still responsive to changes in temperature or position. This balance allows everyone to rest while remaining protected. It is not conscious vigilance, but a habit formed through many winters. The floor beneath them remains cold even through layers of straw and cloth. Bodies adjust automatically, shifting weight slightly to avoid discomfort and to preserve warmth. Knees remain drawn inward, arms folded close, posture compact. These positions reduce surface area, helping retain heat, and they're adopted naturally, without instruction. The house itself contributes to the sense of calm. Thick walls block most outside sounds, and the roof holds steady against the cold air. The structure creaks occasionally, responding to changes in temperature, but these sounds are familiar and reassuring rather than alarming. They remind the family that the house is alive in its own way, adjusting to the night just as they are. Time continues to pass without markers. There is no light to signal progression, no sound to indicate hours. Night becomes a single extended experience rather than a series of moments. This lack of structure allows the mind to release its need for control, making rest deeper and more natural. The cold remains constant, neither worsening nor easing, simply present. This constancy allows the body to settle into a stable state, conserving energy and warmth. Muscles relax further, breathing slows, and awareness fades. Sleep becomes deeper, heavier, more enveloping. Occasionally someone wakes slightly, sensing a change in temperature or position, and makes a small adjustment. A blanket is pulled closer, a shoulder shifts, a foot is tucked deeper into the warmth. These actions happen quietly, almost unconsciously, and are followed immediately by rest. The body knows how to protect itself, even while sleeping. The family remains together in this shared stillness, bodies aligned toward warmth, habits guiding every small detail. This closeness is practical, but it also creates a sense of security that supports rest. Knowing that others are nearby, sharing warmth and space makes the long night feel manageable. Outside, the world remains unchanged, locked in winter's grip. Fields, paths, and trees remain silent and still. The sky above holds steady, stars fixed in place. Nothing moves quickly, nothing calls for attention. Inside, the house continues to serve its purpose, sheltering the family and holding back the cold just enough. Winter nights like this do not test strength in dramatic ways. They test patience, consistency, and knowledge. Families who understood how to wait, how to remain still, and how to share warmth endured more easily. Survival depended not on action, but on restraint. As the night stretches on, the room remains quiet and stable. Breathing continues, slow and steady. Warmth remains conserved, shared and protected. Sleep deepens further, spreading evenly through the room, smoothing out awareness until little remain but sensation and rest. The cold outside persists, but inside it no longer matters. The family is adjusted, the household steady, and the night is allowed to continue without interference. Everything necessary for survival is already in place. As the night moves deeper, sleep begins to take a more defined shape inside the house, though it does not arrive all at once. Instead, it settles gradually, unevenly, touching each person differently. Some drift into deeper rest quickly, others remain in a lighter state, hovering between awareness and sleep. This variation is normal, especially during long winter nights, when the cold encourages stillness but also keeps the body slightly alert. Breathing becomes the most noticeable rhythm in the room, slow, steady, and repetitive. Each breath rises and falls with minimal effort, conserving energy, conserving warmth. The family no longer thinks about the cold directly. It has become part of the background, something felt but no longer examined. This shift allows the body to relax further, reducing tension and easing into rest. Occasionally someone stirs slightly, a small movement made without opening the eyes. A shoulder shifts, a knee draws closer to the body, or a blanket is pulled higher. These movements are brief and controlled, followed immediately by stillness. They are not signs of discomfort, but of the body's automatic response to temperature changes, adjusting quietly to maintain warmth. Children remain asleep, their breathing slow and even, their smaller bodies protected by layers of fabric and the warmth of those around them. Adults remain more lightly asleep, aware enough to sense changes, but not fully awake. This balance allows the family to rest while remaining responsive, a habit formed through many winters spent waiting through the cold. The house remains silent except for these subtle sounds, breathing, fabric shifting, the faint creak of wood responding to temperature changes. These sounds are familiar and reassuring, not disruptive. They signal that everything is functioning as expected, that the house and the people inside it are adapting together. The air inside the room feels dense and unmoving, as if frozen in place. This stillness helps preserve warmth, preventing cold air from circulating. The family benefits from this quiet stability, and the body responds by sinking deeper into rest. Muscles relax further, posture remains compact, and movement becomes increasingly rare. Outside, the night remains unchanged. Snow holds the land in silence, and the wind moves gently across open areas before brushing against the house. These outside forces are felt only faintly inside, softened by thick walls and shared warmth. The family does not react to them, trusting the structure of the home to provide enough protection. As time passes, micro-awakenings occur naturally. Someone becomes briefly aware of their position, of the pressure of the floor beneath them, or of the temperature of the air near their face. These moments of awareness are short, lasting only seconds, and they do not bring anxiety. A small adjustment is made, a blanket is tucked closer, and sleep resumes without effort. These micro-awakenings are an important part of winter rest, allowing the body to maintain warmth and comfort without fully waking. Medieval families relied on this natural process, even without understanding it consciously. The body knew how to protect itself, responding automatically to changes in temperature or position. The embers in the hearth have cooled further now, offering no visible light, but their stored warmth remains faintly present in the stones. This residual heat contributes subtly to the room's temperature, enough to support rest without drawing attention. Fire, even after it fades, continues to serve its purpose quietly. Darkness remains complete, and no one wishes for light. Light would bring awareness, and awareness would invite movement. Darkness allows rest to deepen, encouraging the mind to release its hold on the surroundings. Without visual input, the senses simplify, focusing only on touch, warmth, and sound. The family rests in this simplified state, bodies close, warmth shared, awareness minimal. Time loses definition. There is no sense of hours passing, only the continuation of night. This lack of temporal awareness makes the cold easier to endure, because there is no anticipation, no waiting for a specific moment. Occasionally a sound from outside reaches the house, a distant gust of wind or the faint shift of snow. These sounds are muted and brief, not enough to draw attention. Inside, the family remains still, breathing steady, rest uninterrupted. As the night continues, sleep deepens for most of the room. The body enters a heavier state of rest, muscles fully relaxed, breathing slower than before. In this state, the cold is felt less sharply, and discomfort fades into the background. The environment supports this transition naturally, without effort or intervention. Adults drift further into sleep now, their earlier light awareness giving way to deeper rest. They trust the shared warmth and the shelter of the house, allowing themselves to let go. This trust is not abstract, it is built on experience, on countless nights that ended without incident. The house remains a stable presence, holding steady against the cold outside. Its walls, roof and floor work together to maintain a delicate balance, keeping the interior just warm enough to survive the night. The family's stillness supports this balance, minimizing heat loss and conserving energy. Micro-movements continue occasionally, small shifts that barely register, each followed by renewed stillness. These adjustments become less frequent as sleep deepens. The room grows quieter, breathing more uniform, movements rare. Outside, the cold persists, unchanged and patient. Winter nights are not dramatic, they are persistent. Inside, the family mirrors this persistence, resting steadily, adapting quietly. Survival during these nights depends not on action, but on patience and restraint. As awareness fades further, the mind releases its last attachments to wakefulness. Thoughts dissolve, replaced by simple sensation, warmth, pressure, and the gentle rhythm of breathing. Sleep becomes more complete, enveloping the room evenly. The family rests together now, fully surrendered to the night. There is no sense of struggle, no resistance, only acceptance. The cold remains outside, held at bay by walls, clothing, shared warmth, and habit. Time continues to pass unnoticed. The night stretches forward, long and quiet, carrying the family through its deepest hours. Inside the house, everything remains balanced, stable, and calm. As the night moves further inward, the house reaches a point where almost nothing changes anymore. The family rests in near-complete stillness, bodies settled into positions that no longer shift unless absolutely necessary. Sleep has taken hold for most of them, not suddenly, but through a gradual release of awareness. The cold remains present, steady and unchanged, but it no longer asks for attention. It simply exists alongside rest. Breathing fills the room with a slow, even rhythm, each rise and fall blending into the next. Individual breaths are difficult to separate now. They overlap and merge, creating a single quiet pattern that holds the space together. This rhythm becomes the dominant presence inside the house, replacing thought, replacing movement, replacing time itself. The body responds naturally to this state, muscles fully relaxed, posture compact and efficient. Arms remain tucked close, legs drawn inward, blankets held in place by stillness rather than grip. There is no tension left to release, no discomfort strong enough to break through sleep. The cold presses gently against the edges of awareness, but it is muted, distant, filtered through layers of fabric and shared warmth. Occasionally, a small shift occurs, a foot moves slightly, a shoulder adjusts, or a blanket settles deeper into place. These movements are slow and minimal, guided by instinct rather than thought. They happen without waking, without interrupting the rhythm of breathing. Each adjustment restores balance, then stillness returns. Children remain deeply asleep now, their breathing soft and regular, bodies fully surrendered to rest. Adults are no longer consciously aware of the night, their earlier vigilance fading into deeper sleep. The house no longer needs to be monitored. Everything that could be done has already been done. The night is allowed to unfold without interference. The hearth is now cold, embers fully settled into ash, their warmth lingering only faintly in the stones. This residual heat remains part of the room's balance, subtle but meaningful. Medieval families relied on this quiet endurance of warmth, understanding that fire did not need to be active to remain useful. Even in its absence, it continued to support the night. Darkness inside the house is complete and undisturbed. Without light, the room feels timeless, without edges or boundaries. Space becomes something felt rather than seen, defined by warmth, pressure, and proximity. This simplicity allows rest to deepen further, freeing the mind from any need to orient or interpret. Outside, the night continues unchanged. Snow holds the land in silence. Wind moves slowly and without urgency, and the cold remains constant. These conditions do not fluctuate dramatically, and this steadiness mirrors the stillness inside the house. The family and the night exist in parallel, both settled into their roles. As hours pass, micro-awakenings become less frequent. The body has found a stable state, warmth conserved, position comfortable enough to remain unchanged. Breathing slows further, becoming deeper and more uniform. Awareness retreats almost entirely, leaving only the most basic sensations behind. The house creaks softly at times, responding to shifts in temperature, wood contracting, stone settling. These sounds are quiet and familiar, not enough to reach the surface of sleep. They blend into the background, part of the night's texture rather than interruption. The family remains together in this shared rest, bodies aligned towards warmth, habits guiding every detail without conscious thought. This closeness, repeated night after night, reinforces a sense of security that supports deep sleep. Knowing that others are nearby, sharing warmth and space, allows the mind to let go completely. Time loses any remaining structure. There is no sense of before or after, no awareness of how long the night has lasted or how much remains. This absence of time perception is common during long winter nights, when darkness removes external markers and the body is left to follow its own rhythms. The cold continues to exist at the edges of the room, but it does not intrude. The walls hold firm, clothing retains warmth, and stillness prevents heat from escaping. This balance remains delicate but stable, maintained through habit rather than effort. Medieval families learned to trust this balance, to let it carry them through the deepest hours of the night. Sleep now becomes heavier, more uniform throughout the room. Movements stop almost entirely, breathing remains the only sign of life. The body enters a state of rest designed to conserve energy, slow metabolism, and protect warmth. In this state, discomfort fades and sensation becomes dull, distant. Occasionally, a brief awareness flickers, a momentary sense of cold air on the face or pressure beneath the body. These moments are fleeting, barely formed, and they dissolve before becoming thoughts. The body adjusts automatically if needed, then returns to stillness. The house remains unchanged, steady against the night. Its structure, shaped by generations of experience, continues to do its work quietly. Thick walls, low roof, minimal openings, all designed to resist the cold just enough. This design supports rest, allowing the family to remain undisturbed. Outside, the night holds its position, patient and unmoving. Inside, the family mirrors this patience, resting deeply, conserving warmth, and allowing time to pass unnoticed. There is no anticipation of morning, no counting of hours, only the continuation of rest. As sleep deepens further, the mind releases even its last fragments of awareness. Thoughts no longer form, sensations blur together, and this body becomes the primary focus. Warmth, pressure, and breathing remain, everything else fades. The family rests fully now, united by stillness and shared space. The cold remains outside, held at bay by layers, walls, and habit. Survival during these hours depends not on action but on surrender, on allowing the body to do what it has learned to do over many winters. The night continues, quiet and unbroken. Inside the house, nothing changes, and nothing needs to change. The balance holds, sleep remains deep, and the long winter hours pass without disturbance. The night has now reached a point where it no longer feels like evening or morning. It simply exists as a long, uninterrupted stretch of darkness. Inside the house, the family remains deeply asleep, bodies settled into positions that have barely changed for a long time. Awareness has faded almost completely, leaving behind only the most basic sensations: warmth, pressure, and the slow rhythm of breathing. Time no longer moves forward in a noticeable way. It feels suspended. Breathing continues steadily throughout the room, slow and even, rising and falling without effort. These breaths blend together, overlapping gently, creating a soft, continuous sound that fills the space. This sound becomes the only clear marker of life inside the house. Everything else has settled into stillness. The cold remains present, but distant, pressed gently against the edges of the room without demanding attention. Bodies remain close, blankets layered and unmoving, fabric resting heavily where it was last adjusted. No one stirs unless absolutely necessary, and even then, movements are minimal, guided by instinct rather than thought. A knee shifts slightly, a shoulder presses closer to warmth, a blanket settles more firmly. These adjustments happen quietly without breaking sleep, and are followed immediately by stillness. The hearth is now completely cold, ash settled, stones holding only the faintest memory of warmth. Even this residual heat contributes to the balance inside the room, subtle but meaningful. Medieval families relied on these small reserves of warmth, understanding that nothing needed to burn brightly to be useful. What mattered was endurance, not intensity. Darkness inside the house feels complete and absolute. Without light, the space loses its clear shape, becoming something felt rather than seen. The boundaries of the room soften, defined by warmth and proximity rather than walls and corners. This lack of visual detail allows the mind to rest more deeply, freeing it from the need to orient or interpret. Outside, the night remains still and frozen. Snow covers the land in silence. Wind moves slowly and without urgency, and the sky holds steady above. These conditions do not change quickly, and this steadiness mirrors the calm inside the house. The family and the winter night exist together, both settled into their roles. As the deepest hours of the night pass, micro-awakenings become rare. The body has adapted fully to its position and temperature, finding a balance that can be maintained without conscious effort. Breathing slows further, becoming deeper and more uniform. Muscles remain relaxed, posture compact, conserving warmth efficiently. Occasionally the house responds to the cold with a quiet sound, wood contracting slightly, stone shifting imperceptibly. These sounds are familiar and non-threatening, part of the house's natural response to winter. They do not reach the surface of sleep, they blend into the background, absorbed by the stillness of the night. The family remains connected through shared warmth and space, even while asleep. This connection is not felt consciously, but it supports rest, allowing sleep to remain deep and uninterrupted. Knowing that others are nearby, even without awareness, creates a sense of safety that helps the body remain relaxed. time continues to lose its structure. There is no sense of how long the family has been resting or how much of the night remains. Without light or sound to mark progression, the night becomes a single extended experience. This absence of markers makes the cold easier to endure because there is no anticipation, no waiting for a specific moment. The cold remains steady, neither worsening nor easing, simply present. The body adjusts to this constancy, focusing on conserving energy rather than reacting to discomfort. Sensation becomes muted, dull, distant, allowing sleep to deepen further. At times, awareness flickers briefly, a half-formed sensation of cold air near the face or pressure beneath the body. These moments are fleeting, barely forming into thoughts before dissolving. The body responds automatically if needed, pulling a blanket closer or shifting slightly, then returns to stillness. The room remains unchanged, breathing steady, movements rare. The house continues to shelter its occupants, holding back the worst of the cold through thick walls and careful design. This reliability allows rest to continue uninterrupted, even during the deepest hours of the night. Outside, winter remains firm and unyielding. Inside, the family remains still and protected. This balance has been repeated countless times over generations, shaping habits and expectations. Medieval families understood that winter nights were not meant to be conquered, only endured quietly. Sleep now covers the room evenly, heavy and undisturbed. Breathing is slow, bodies are relaxed, and awareness has retreated fully. The cold exists only as a distant presence, no longer capable of breaking through rest. The night stretches forward, calm and unbroken. As these deepest hours continue, nothing calls for attention, nothing requires response. The family rests fully, supported by shared warmth, thick walls and routine. The long winter night moves on, carrying them gently through its quiet centre. The night continues without any visible change, settled into a deep and steady state that feels endless. Inside the house, the family remains fully asleep, bodies unmoving, positions unchanged for a long time. The cold has stopped announcing itself. It no longer feels sharp or demanding. It simply exists in the background, constant and predictable. This constancy allows the body to remain at rest, no longer reacting, no longer adjusting. Breathing fills the room quietly, slow and uniform, each breath following the last without effort. These overlapping rhythms blend together, creating a single continuous presence that defines the space. There are no other sounds now, no voices, no movement, only this steady patterns that confirms everything remains balanced. The darkness inside the house feels complete and settled. Without light, the room no longer feels divided into separate areas. It feels whole, contained, and still. Space becomes less important, replaced by sensation and familiarity. The family does not need to see to know where they are, where others rest, or how close warmth remains. The hearth remains cold, ash undisturbed, stones holding no visible glow. Even so, the memory of warmth lingers faintly in the air, absorbed by the walls and floor. This subtle presence contributes to the overall stability of the room, reminding the body that warmth has not completely disappeared. Medieval families relied on this quiet persistence, trusting the house to hold what little heat remained. Outside, the night remains unchanged. Snow covers the land evenly, reflecting faint light from the sky. Wind moves slowly across open spaces, sometimes brushing the house, sometimes passing without sound. These movements are distant and muted, unable to reach inside in any meaningful way. The thick walls hold firm, creating a boundary between the family and the cold. Inside, sleep remains deep and uninterrupted. Micro-awakenings are rare now, almost non-existent. The body has fully adapted to its position and temperature, finding a balance that requires no further correction. Muscles remain relaxed, posture compact, conserving warmth efficiently. Occasionally the house responds quietly to the cold, a soft creak from wood contracting, a subtle shift in stone. These sounds are familiar, expected, and do not rise to the surface of awareness. They blend into the night, becoming part of the environment rather than interruptions. Time continues to lose its meaning. Without light, sound, or movement to mark its passage, the night becomes a single, continuous experience. There is no sense of before or after, no awareness of how long the family has been resting. This absence of time perception makes endurance easier, because there is nothing to count, nothing to wait for. The cold remains steady, neither worsening nor easing. This stability allows the body to remain calm, no longer reacting to discomfort. Sensation dulls further, awareness fades, and sleep deepens into a state where only the most basic functions remain active. The family remains connected through shared warmth and proximity, even while asleep. This connection is not felt consciously, but it supports rest, reinforcing a sense of safety that allows sleep to remain undisturbed. Knowing that others are nearby, even without awareness, helps the body stay relaxed. Outside, the night continues its slow progression, though it cannot be measured. The sky remains dark, the land silent, the cold patient. Inside, the house and the family remain unchanged, settled into their roles. Nothing calls for action, nothing demands attention. Breathing remains slow and even, rising and falling in unison throughout the room. This rhythm fills the space completely, replacing thought, replacing awareness. The body rests fully within this rhythm, surrendering to it without resistance. Occasionally a slight change in temperature is felt, perhaps a faint draft near the floor or a subtle cooling of the air. The body responds automatically, drawing limbs closer, pressing fabric more firmly against the skin. These adjustments are minimal and unconscious, followed immediately by renewed stillness. The room remains dark, quiet and contained. The walls continue to block outside forces, the roof holds steady against the cold air. The house functions as intended, providing shelter that is not comfortable, but sufficient. Sufficiency is enough to survive winter nights like this. The family rests deeply now, fully surrendered to the night. There is no awareness of cold, no awareness of time, only rest and the faint sense of warmth shared between bodies. Sleep spreads evenly, smoothing out any remaining tension. Outside, winter remains unchanged. Inside, nothing shifts. The balance holds, fragile but reliable. Medieval families depended on this balance night after night, trusting it to carry them through the longest hours. As the night continues, it does so quietly, without interruption. The family remains asleep, breathing steady, bodies still. The cold remains outside, held at distance by walls, layers, and habit. Nothing needs to change, nothing needs to happen. The long winter night moves forward, calm and unbroken, carrying the family through its deepest hours, while inside the house, rest remains complete, steady, and undisturbed. The night continues to hold its shape, unchanged and steady, as if it has decided to remain exactly as it is. Inside the house, the family stays deeply asleep, bodies resting in positions that now feel permanent. There is no clear sense of progression, no signal that time is moving forward, only the quiet persistence of the night itself. The cold remains present, but it has lost its sharpness, becoming a constant background condition that no longer calls for attention. Breathing fills the room evenly, slow and rhythmic, each breath following the last without interruption. These overlapping rhythms blend together so completely that it is difficult to distinguish one person from another. The sound is soft, continuous and calming, replacing thought and awareness entirely. This rhythm becomes the only sign of life inside the house, steady and reliable. The air remains still, dense and unmoving. This stillness helps preserve warmth, preventing cold currents from forming. The family benefits from this quiet balance, and the body responds by remaining relaxed and settled. Muscles stay loose, posture remains compact, and movement becomes unnecessary. Occasionally a micro-awakening occurs, so subtle that it barely registers as awareness. A person may sense a slight change in temperature, or the pressure beneath their body, prompting a small adjustment. A blanket is pulled closer, a shoulder shifts inward, a leg draws nearer to warmth. These actions happen without opening the eyes, without forming thoughts, and without breaking the rhythm of sleep. Almost immediately, stillness returns. These micro-awakenings are part of the night's natural flow. They allow the body to protect itself while remaining asleep. Medieval families depended on this instinctive process, even without understanding it consciously. The body learned how to respond to cold automatically, conserving warmth without waking fully. The house itself remains quiet and stable. Thick walls continue to block outside sounds, and the roof holds steady against the cold air. Occasionally the structure responds to the temperature with a soft creak or a subtle shift, but these sounds are familiar and reassuring. They blend into the night, never rising high enough to disturb sleep. Outside, the winter night remains firm and patient. Snow lies undisturbed, reflecting faint light from the sky. The wind moves slowly, sometimes brushing the house, sometimes passing without sound. These forces remain distant, unable to penetrate the shelter of stone and wood. Inside, the family feels only the faintest suggestion of their presence. Sleep deepens further for most of the room. Awareness fades completely, leaving only basic bodily functions. Breathing slows slightly, becoming deeper and more uniform. The cold exists only as a dull sensation, no longer capable of interrupting rest. The environment supports this state naturally, requiring no effort or attention. The hearth remains cold, ash-settled, stones holding no visible warmth. Even so, the memory of heat lingers faintly in the room, absorbed by the walls and floor. This residual warmth contributes subtly to the overall balance, reminding the body that warmth has not fully disappeared. Medieval homes were designed to work this way, storing heat rather than releasing it all at once. Time continues to pass without being measured. There are no clocks, no changes in light, no sounds to mark the hours. The night becomes a continuous experience rather than a sequence of moments. This lack of structure allows the mind to release its need for orientation, making rest deeper and more complete. Occasionally a brief awareness surfaces, not as a thought, but as a sensation, a slight coolness near the face or a change in pressure beneath the body. These sensations fade quickly, dissolving before they can form into concern. The body responds if needed, then returns to stillness. The family remains connected through shared warmth and proximity, even while asleep. This connection is not consciously felt, but it provides a sense of security that supports deep rest. Knowing at some level that others are nearby allows the body to relax fully, surrendering to sleep without hesitation. Outside, the night remains unchanged. The sky holds steady, the land silent and frozen. Inside, the house continues to perform its role, holding back the cold just enough. This balance is fragile, but it is reliable, built on generations of experience and careful design. As sleep deepens further, movements become even rarer. Breathing remains the dominant presence, slow and steady. The room feels suspended in time, as if the night has paused here, unwilling to move forward or backward. This suspension makes the cold easier to endure, because nothing feels urgent or threatening. The body's internal rhythms take over completely now. Heartbeats slow slightly, muscles remain relaxed, and awareness stays distant. In this state, the cold no longer feels like an external force. It becomes part of the environment, something accepted rather than resisted. Occasionally, a quiet sound from outside reaches the house, a distant gust of wind or the faint shift of snow. These sounds are muted and brief, not enough to disturb the balance inside. The family remains asleep, unaffected, breathing steady. The room remains dark, contained and calm. Without light, without movement, and without sound, there is nothing to draw attention back to wakefulness. Sleep remains deep even and undisturbed. The night continues quietly, doing what it has always done. The cold outside persists, patient and unyielding. Inside, the family mirrors this patience, resting steadily, conserving warmth, and allowing the hours to pass unnoticed. Survival during these nights depends on this ability to wait without tension, to remain still without fear. As the deepest part of the night continues, the house and the family remain unchanged. The balance holds, warmth conserved, rest complete. Nothing needs to be done, nothing needs to change. The long winter night moves forward slowly, almost imperceptibly, carrying the family through its quiet center. Inside the house, sleep remains deep and stable, breathing steady, bodies still. The cold remains outside, held at a distance by walls, layers, and habit. The night continues in a way that feels almost motionless, as if it has settled into a deep, unchanging state. Inside the house, the family remains fully asleep, bodies resting in positions shaped by warmth and habit. There is no clear moment that separates earlier hours from later ones. The night simply carries on, steady and quiet. The cold remains present, unchanged, no longer sharp, no longer demanding, simply part of the environment. Breathing remains slow and even throughout the room, a soft rhythm that fills the space completely. Each breath rises and falls without effort, blending seamlessly with the others. This rhythm has become the only clear sign of life inside the house, replacing movement, sound, and awareness. Nothing interrupts it, nothing competes with it. The air inside the room feels heavy and still, unmoving, as if it has settled into place along with the family. This stillness helps preserve warmth, preventing cold air from circulating. The body responds naturally to this condition, remaining relaxed, conserving energy, allowing rest to deepen further. Micro-awakenings become extremely rare now. Your body has found a stable balance, temperature regulated, posture comfortable enough to maintain without adjustment. Awareness no longer surfaces in noticeable ways, and when it does, it fades almost immediately. A faint sensation, a half-formed awareness, then nothing. The hearth remains cold and dark, ash undisturbed. Stones hold no visible warmth, yet the room does not feel entirely devoid of heat. The walls and floor retain what little warmth remains, releasing it slowly, evenly. Medieval homes were built with this in mind, designed to soften the cold rather than eliminate it. Darkness inside the house feels complete and settled, without variation. Without light, the room no longer feels like a collection of objects. It feels like a single enclosed space, defined by warmth and proximity. This lack of visual detail allows the mind to rest more deeply, freeing it from the need to process or interpret. Outside, the winter night remains unchanged. Snow lies still, reflecting faint light from the sky. Wind moves slowly across the landscape, occasionally brushing the house, sometimes passing without sound. These movements are distant, followed by thick walls and shared warmth. Inside, they barely register. The family remains connected through shared space and warmth, even while asleep. This connection is not felt consciously, but it supports rest, creating a quiet sense of security. Knowing that others are nearby, even without awareness, allows the body to remain relaxed and settled. Time continues to lose meaning. There is no sense of how long the family has been resting, or how much of the night remains. Without light, sound, or activity to mark progression, the night becomes a continuous experience rather than a sequence of moments. This absence of structure makes endurance easier because there is nothing to anticipate. The cold remains steady, neither intensifying nor easing. This stability allows the body to remain calm, no longer reacting to discomfort. Sensation dulls further, awareness fades, and sleep becomes deeper, heavier, and more complete. Occasionally, the house responds quietly to changes in temperature. A faint creak from wood contracting, a subtle shift in stone. These sounds are familiar and expected, part of the house's natural rhythm. They do not rise to the surface of sleep, they blend into the background. Breathing remains the dominant presence, slow and uniform. The rhythm fills the room, steady and unbroken. It is not noticed consciously, but it shapes the entire space, holding everything together. The body's internal processes take over completely now. Heartbeats slow slightly, muscles remain relaxed, and awareness stays distant. In this state, the cold no longer feels external. It becomes part of the surrounding conditions, something accepted rather than resisted. Outside, the night continues its slow progression, though it cannot be measured. The sky remains dark, the land silent, frozen in place. Inside, the house continues to provide shelter, holding back the worst of the cold through thick walls and careful design. This reliability allows rest to remain uninterrupted. Movements inside the room are nearly non-existent now. Blankets remain where they were last placed. Bodies remain still, posture unchanged. Any adjustment that might be needed happens automatically and invisibly without waking. Sleep now covers the room completely. Awareness has retreated fully, leaving only the most basic sensations behind. The family rests deeply, breathing steady, warmth shared, energy conserved. The cold remains outside, patient and persistent. Inside, the family mirrors this patience, resting steadily, allowing the night to pass without effort or resistance. Survival during these hours depends on this quiet acceptance, on allowing the body to do what it has learned to do over many winters. As the night continues into its later hours, nothing changes in any noticeable way. The balance holds, fragile but reliable. The house stands firm, the family remains asleep, and the long winter night moves forward quietly. The night remains dark and cold, but something subtle begins to change. Not in a way that can be seen or measured, only felt. Inside the house, the family continues to sleep deeply, bodies still, breathing steady. Yet the weight of the night feels slightly different. It is not lighter, not warmer, but less demanding, as if the night has stopped pressing forward and has chosen instead to rest in place. Breathing continues to fill the room, slow and even, rising and falling without effort. The rhythm remains steady, but it feels softer now, less tense, less guarded. The body no longer holds itself quite as tightly. Muscles remain relaxed. Posture remains compact, yet there is a faint sense of release, almost imperceptible but present. The cold outside has not changed. Snow still covers the land. Wind still moves slowly across open spaces, and the air remains sharp and still. Inside, however, the family no longer reacts to the cold in the same way. The body has adapted fully, finding a stable balance that requires no attention. Cold exists, but it no longer feels like something that must be managed actively. The house remains silent, walls steady, roof unmoving, floor cold but familiar. Thick stone and wood continue to hold back the worst of the night, doing exactly what they were built to do. The family trusts this shelter completely, not consciously but through habit and repetition. Nights like this have been endured many times before. Sleep remains deep throughout the room, but it begins to shift slightly in quality. Instead of sinking further, it spreads out, becoming more even, more uniform. The body no longer drifts deeper, it simply stays where it is, resting comfortably within the conditions it has accepted. Awareness does not return, but tension fades further. Occasionally a faint sensation passes through the body, a slight warmth near the centre of the group, or a gentle pressure from shared space. These sensations do not form into thoughts, they simply exist, then fade. The body acknowledges them without waking, then returns to stillness. The hearth remains cold, ash settled, stones holding no visible warmth. Even so, the room does not feel empty of heat. Warmth remains distributed through walls, floor, fabric, and bodies, balanced carefully and conserved through stillness. Medieval families relied on this quiet distribution, understanding that warmth did not need to be concentrated to be effective. Darkness inside the house remains complete, but it feels less heavy now, less enclosing. Without light, the room still lacks shape, but the darkness no longer feels dense. It becomes a neutral backdrop, allowing the body to rest without pressure. This change is subtle, gradual, and easy to miss, yet it affects the overall atmosphere. Outside, the night continues its slow, patient presence. The sky remains dark, stars fixed in place, the land frozen and silent. There is no sign of morning, no hint of light, yet the night has lost its forward momentum. It no longer feels like it is advancing, only holding. Inside, the family remains asleep, breathing steady, bodies unmoving. Micro-awakenings are almost non-existent now. The body has settled into a state that feels sustainable. Temperature, position, and pressure remain balanced enough that no adjustment is required. The house responds quietly to changes in temperature, wood contracting slightly, stone holding firm. These sounds are minimal and familiar, blending into the background without disturbing rest. The structure feels stable, dependable, and unchanged. Time remains unmeasured. Without light or sound to mark progress, there is no sense of how much of the night has passed. The mind does not attempt to track it, because there is no reason to. This lack of anticipation allows rest to remain uninterrupted, deep and calm. The cold remains steady, but it feels less intrusive now, more distant. The body has accepted it fully, integrating it into the resting state. Sensation remains dull and muted, awareness distant. Sleep continues without effort. Occasionally a slight shift occurs, barely noticeable. A blanket settles, a shoulder presses closer to warmth, a leg relaxes further. These movements happen slowly and unconsciously, followed immediately by young stillness. The balance is quickly restored and rest continues. The family remains connected through shared warmth and space, even while asleep. This connection supports the subtle change in the night's tone, making it easier to remain at rest. Knowing at some level that others are nearby allows the body to relax fully. Outside, the night remains unchanged, but it feels quieter now, less active. Wind moves less frequently, snow remains still, and the air feels settled. This calm mirrors the stillness inside the house, reinforcing the sense that the night has reached a point of rest. Sleep continues evenly throughout the room. Breathing remains slow, deep, and regular. The body's internal rhythms dominate completely, guiding rest without interruption. In this state, the cold no longer feels like a challenge, only a condition. The house continues to provide shelter quietly. Thick walls, low roof, minimal openings, all working together to maintain the delicate balance inside. This design reflects generations of experience, knowledge passed down through practice rather than words. As the night holds steady, the family remains asleep, bodies conserved, warmth shared. There is no expectation of change, no anticipation of the morning. The night is allowed to remain as it is, calm and unbroken. The cold outside persists, patient and constant. Inside, the family mirrors this patience, resting steadily, allowing the night to pass without effort. Survival during these hours depends on this quiet acceptance, on allowing the environment and the body to remain in balance. As the later hours of the night continue, the atmosphere inside the house feels settled, stable and calm. Nothing demands attention, nothing requires action. The family remains asleep, breathing steady, bodies still, as the long winter night continues to unfold quietly around them. The night continues in a calm, steady way, no longer pressing forward, no longer demanding attention. Inside the house, the family remains deeply asleep, bodies still, breathing slow and regular. The cold has not disappeared. It remains present, but it has moved fully into the background. It no longer interrupts rest, no longer asks for adjustment. It simply exists alongside sleep, quiet and constant. Breathing fills the room softly, each breath rising and falling with minimal effort. The rhythm is steady and unbroken, creating a sense of continuity that holds the space together. There are no sudden sounds, no movements that stand out, only this slow pattern that confirms everything remains balanced. The body responds by staying relaxed, conserving warmth without effort. The air inside the house feels settled now, neither heavy nor sharp, just still. This stillness prevents cold from moving through the room, allowing warmth to remain where it has collected. The family benefits from this condition without awareness, bodies resting in positions that no longer require adjustment. Muscles remain relaxed, posture compact, movement unnecessary. Outside, the winter night remains unchanged. Snow continues to cover the land. Wind moves gently across open areas, and the sky holds steady above. These conditions feel distant now, almost separate from the world inside the house. Thick walls and careful construction create a quiet boundary, allowing the family to remain undisturbed. Sleep remains deep and even throughout the room. Micro-awakenings have almost completely faded, replaced by long stretches of uninterrupted rest. The body has found a sustainable balance, temperature regulated, pressure distributed evenly. There is no discomfort strong enough to surface, no sensation demanding response. The hearth remains cold, ash settled, stones holding only a faint trace of warmth. Even so, the room does not feel empty of heat. Warmth exists in layers, in fabric, in bodies, in the structure of the house itself. This distributed warmth is subtle but effective, supporting rest without drawing attention. Darkness inside the house feels neutral now, no longer heavy or enclosing. Without light, the room has lost its sense of depth and distance, becoming a simple enclosed space defined by proximity and warmth. This simplicity supports deeper rest, removing any remaining mental effort. The family remains close, bodies aligned toward shared warmth, blankets overlapping where possible. This closeness is no longer consciously felt, it has become part of the resting state. Knowing that others are nearby, even without awareness, continues to support calm and stability. Time remains unmeasured and irrelevant. There is no sense of how long the family has been asleep or how much of the night remains. Without markers, the night feels continuous, unbroken. This lack of structure allows the body to remain fully at rest, without anticipation or concern. Occasionally, the house responds quietly to changes in temperature. A soft creak from wood, a subtle shift in stone. These sounds are familiar and expected, blending into the background without disturbing sleep. They serve as quiet reminders that the house is adjusting alongside the family. The cold outside remains steady, but it feels distant now, almost abstract. The body no longer reacts to it directly, having accepted it fully as part of the environment. Sensation remains muted, awareness is distant, rest uninterrupted. Breathing continues evenly, slow and deep. Heartbeats remain steady, muscles relaxed. The body's internal rhythms dominate completely, guiding rest without interference. In this state, the night feels stable and predictable. No longer something to endure, simply something that exists. The family remains asleep together, sharing warmth and space without effort. This shared rest reflects generations of learned behavior, knowledge passed down through experience rather than instruction. Medieval families understood how to let the night pass, how to remain still, how to conserve energy. Outside, the world remains frozen in winter's grip. Inside, nothing changes. The balance holds, reliable and quiet. The house continues to do its work, sheltering the family just enough, holding back the cold without eliminating it. As the later hours of the night continue, sleep remains deep and even. There are no signs of waking, no shifts toward awareness. The body remains fully committed to rest, trusting the environment to remain stable. Occasionally a faint sensation passes through the body, a slight warmth near shared contact, or a subtle pressure from fabric. These sensations do not form into thoughts, they simply register briefly, then fade. The body acknowledges them without waking, maintaining stillness. The darkness remains unchanged, soft and neutral. Without visual input, the mind remains quiet, free from distraction. This absence of stimulation supports the continued depth of sleep, allowing the night to pass unnoticed. The family's breathing continues to fill the room, slow and synchronized. This rhythm becomes the defining feature of the space, replacing all other activity. Nothing interrupts it, nothing competes with it. The cold remains present but irrelevant. The body is fully adapted, integrating the condition into rest. Survival no longer feels active, it feels passive, sustained through stillness and habit. The house remains steady, walls firm, roof unmoving. Its design, shaped by generations of winter nights, continues to provide shelter in exactly the way it was intended. This reliability allows the family to remain asleep without concern. As the night holds steady, the family remains deeply at rest, bodies conserved, warmth shared. There is no anticipation of morning, no awareness of time passing. The night is allowed to remain as it is, quiet and stable. Outside, winter persists, patient and unchanging. Inside, the family mirrors this patience, resting steadily, allowing the hours to pass without effort. The balance remains intact, fragile but dependable. As the night continues toward its later stages, nothing changes in any noticeable way. The room remains still, breathing steady, sleep deep. The cold remains outside, distant and controlled. Everything necessary for rest and survival remains in place. The night remains deep and cold and quiet, but the atmosphere inside the house begins to feel slightly different. Not warmer, not brighter, just less heavy. Nothing dramatic changes, and nothing needs to change. The family stays asleep, breathing steady, bodies still, yet the night no longer feels like it is pressing forward. It feels as if it's simply holding, as if it has reached a calm plateau, a stable place where the cold is constant and the darkness is familiar, and the house is doing exactly what it was built to do. The family remains close together, their shared warmth distributed evenly now, not concentrated in one spot, but spread through layers of fabric, through skin, through the still air. Blankets remain in place, heavy and practical, not soft, not luxurious, but reliable. Clothing stays layered, wool still wrapped around bodies, sleeves still down, collars still close, because the cold never truly leaves. The body does not complain. It has learned to accept the condition, and acceptance makes the night easier to endure. Breathing continues to shape the room, slow, calm, and repetitive. Individual breaths blend together, becoming one continuous sound, a steady background that replaces all other activity. There are no voices, no footsteps, no tasks, only this soft rhythm. The body follows it naturally, heartbeat steady, muscles relaxed, awareness as distant. In this state, the cold exists only as a quiet boundary, something outside the blankets, outside the warmth, not a sharp sensation, not a threat. Outside, winter holds the land in silence. Snow remains undisturbed, spread across paths and fields, reflecting faint light from the sky. Wind moves slowly, sometimes brushing the house, sometimes passing without a sound. These forces remain patient, steady and unchanged. Inside, the thick walls soften everything, filtering the outside world until it becomes a distant presence. The family does not react, because there is nothing to react to. Everything is stable, everything is predictable. The house remains still, but it is not lifeless. Wood contracts slightly in the cold, stone holds its weight. The roof remains firm. Occasionally a soft creak appears, brief and familiar, a tiny reminder that the structure is adjusting to the temperature. These sounds do not disturb sleep. They blend into the background and disappear quickly. Medieval families knew these sounds well. They lived with them, they trusted them, because the sounds meant the house was holding, not failing. Sleep remains deep, but it also becomes smoother, more even. Earlier in the night, rest may have had small shifts, small adjustments, brief micro-awakenings, but now those moments become rarer. The body is settled into the most efficient posture, compact and warm, conserving energy. Knees remain drawn inward, arms remain close, shoulders relaxed. The floor stays cold beneath straw and cloth, but pressure and discomfort have faded into the background because the body has stopped resisting, and resistance is exhausting. Time remains unmeasured. There is no light to mark progress, no sound to signal hours passing, no change in activity to suggest direction. The night feels continuous, like one long, unbroken stretch. This continuity makes it easier to rest, because the mind is not counting, not anticipating. There is no waiting for something to happen. There is only the experience of being inside the night, inside the house, inside shared warmth, while the cold remains outside. The hearth is cold now, ash settled, stones holding only a faint memory of heat. There is no glow, no crackle, no movement of flame. Even so, the room does not feel empty of warmth. Heat remains stored in the walls, in the floor, in layers of fabric, and most of all in the bodies resting together. Medieval families depended on this distribution. They understood that warmth could be conserved by stillness, and by closeness, and by not wasting what the day had created. The darkness inside the house feels neutral, not comforting, not frightening, simply present. Without light, the room loses its sharp edges. It becomes a single enclosed space defined by proximity rather than distance. This lack of visual detail keeps the mind quiet, because there is nothing to interpret. The body remains at rest, and the mind follows, letting thoughts dissolve before they form. Sleep is not an event here. It is a steady condition, supported by the environment. Occasionally a tiny adjustment happens, a blanket settles, a foot shifts slightly, a shoulder presses closer to warmth. These movements are slow, automatic and minimal, guided by instinct rather than awareness. The eyes stay closed, the breathing remains steady, and the adjustment ends as quickly as it begins. Then stillness returns. These small corrections do not break the night. They reinforce balance, keeping warmth where it is needed, keeping the body comfortable enough to remain asleep. The family's closeness continues to matter even while everyone sleeps. Children remain protected in the warmest positions between adults, away from the colder edges of the room. Adults remain less protected, but more capable of conserving heat, and their bodies provide a stable boundary of warmth. This arrangement is not planned each night. It is simply how things are done, repeated until it becomes automatic. Over generations, these habits become the quiet method of survival. Outside, the night remains firm and cold and quiet. The wind may shift direction or pause for a while, but it does not bring change. Snow remains in place. The land remains silent. The sky remains dark. Inside, the family remains asleep, and the house remains steady, and nothing demands attention. This is not a dramatic struggle. It is endurance, and endurance looks like stillness, and patience, and a willingness to let the night pass on its own. As the night moves toward its later hours, the air inside the house feels slightly less tense, not warmer, but calmer. The body senses stability, and it relaxes more fully into it. The breath remains slow, the muscles remain loose, the posture remains compact, the cold stays outside the blankets, outside the shared warmth. Survival in these hours depends on maintaining this calm, on not wasting energy, on not waking fully, on letting the body remain in its resting rhythm. The house continues to do its work quietly. Thick walls reduce drafts. Small windows, if they exist, are covered or minimal, designed to keep warmth in. The door remains closed. The roof holds steady. Everything about the structure reflects experience learned over many winters. It is not meant to be comfortable, it is meant to be sufficient. And sufficiency is what keeps the family safe night after night through long stretches of cold that do not offer relief. Micro-awakenings are now extremely rare, almost invisible. If awareness flickers, it does so briefly, as a sensation rather than a thought. Perhaps a faint coolness near the face, perhaps a pressure beneath the body. The sensation fades quickly, not becoming worry, not becoming a story. The body responds automatically if needed, drawing fabric closer, relaxing deeper, then returning to stillness. The mind stays quiet, because the environment offers nothing to hold on to. Breathing remains the most consistent feature of the room. It moves like a slow tide, rising and falling, repeating without change. This rhythm fills the space completely, and it is steady enough that it becomes almost invisible, like the background hum of the night. The body follows it, heart steady, temperature regulated as well as possible, muscles relaxed. The cold remains outside, patient and constant, but inside the room, rest continues without interruption. The night does not announce any ending. There is no hint of morning. There is no change in sound. There is no shift in temperature that signals relief. Instead, the night remains itself, long, quiet and stable. This is how it often felt in medieval winters, not like a journey toward dawn, but like an extended period of darkness that simply had to be lived through. Families learned to accept this, because acceptance reduced stress, and stress wasted energy. Inside the house, the family remains asleep and the balance holds. Warmth is conserved through stillness. Cold is managed through layers. Safety is maintained through shelter. Nothing needs to be done. Nothing needs to happen. The night continues gently, without urgency, carrying the family through its late hours as the house stays firm and the breathing stays slow, and the long winter darkness remains calm and unbroken. The night continues in the same quiet, steady way, and the house remains unchanged, holding the family inside as the cold stays outside. There is no clear dividing line between earlier and later hours, only a slow deepening of stillness, as if the night has settled into a calm, fixed shape. The family remains asleep, breathing slow and regular, bodies close together, layers of cloth and wool pressed gently into place. The cold has not vanished, it remains present, but it no longer feels urgent, it feels stable, and stability makes the night easier to endure. Breathing fills the room as a single soft pattern, rising and falling with minimal effort. Each breath blends with the next, and each person's rhythm overlaps the others until it is difficult to tell where one ends and another begins. This sound is quiet, constant and soothing, and it replaces everything else. There are no voices, no footsteps, no tasks, only slow breathing, and the faint presence of a winter night that continues without interruption. The air inside the house remains still, dense, and calm. This stillness helps preserve warmth, because moving air carries cold into gaps and corners. Here the air seems settled in place, as if it has decided to rest as well. The family benefits from this without awareness, their bodies remaining relaxed, posture compact, energy conserved. The body knows the night is long, and it responds by doing less, moving less, and holding warmth quietly. The hearth is cold now, ash settled, stones holding only a faint memory of heat. There is no glow, no crackle, no movement of flame, yet the room does not feel empty of warmth. Warmth remains in small reserves stored in thick walls, in the floor, in layers of fabric, and in the closeness of bodies. Medieval families depended on these reserves, because in winter, warmth was not something endless. It was something managed, something preserved through patience. Outside, snow covers the land in silence, paths and fields held still by cold. The wind moves slowly, sometimes brushing the house, sometimes passing without sound. The sky remains dark, stars fixed, no change visible. Inside, these outside forces feel distant, softened by thick walls and a low roof designed to conserve heat. The house blocks most sound, and the family rests without interruption, without needing to respond to anything beyond the door. Sleep remains deep and even throughout the room. Earlier in the night there may have been small shifts, brief micro-awakenings, subtle adjustments, but now those moments become rarer. The body has found the most efficient position, knees drawn inward, arms close to the chest, shoulders relaxed. Blankets and cloth remain layered, overlapping in places, creating pockets of warmth that stay in place because stillness holds them there. The floor remains cold beneath straw and cloth, but discomfort fades into the background because the body has stopped resisting, and resistance requires effort. Darkness inside the house feels neutral, not heavy, not frightening, simply present. Without light, the room becomes less defined by sight and more defined by touch and proximity. The edges of the space soften. Objects are no longer separate things, they become part of an unseen room that is understood through memory. This lack of detail keeps the mind quiet because there is nothing to interpret. Thoughts do not gather. They dissolve before they can take shape, and sleep remains steady. Occasionally a tiny movement occurs so small it barely changes anything. A blanket settles slightly. A foot shifts inward. A shoulder presses closer to warmth. These adjustments happen without opening the eyes, without forming thoughts, and without breaking sleep. They are automatic responses, the body protecting itself while remaining asleep. Medieval families relied on this natural process, even without naming it, because the body knows how to correct small imbalances quietly. The house itself responds to the night in subtle ways. Wood contracts in the cold. Stone holds steady, absorbing and releasing temperature slowly. A faint creak may appear, then disappear, a quiet sound that never rises into something alarming. These sounds are familiar, expected, and they blend into the background. They do not interrupt rest. They simply remind the body at some distant level that the house is holding, adjusting, doing its work. Time remains unmeasured. There is no sense of how many hours have passed or how many remain. Without light or activity, the night becomes one long experience, steady and continuous. This makes endurance easier, because there is nothing to count, nothing to anticipate. The mind does not search for an end. It rests inside the night, inside the stillness, inside the shared warmth. The family remains close not from choice in this moment, but from habit and necessity. Children remain protected in the warmest positions between adults, away from the colder edges of the room. Adults form a boundary of warmth, more capable of conserving heat, their bodies holding still and steady. This arrangement is repeated night after night until it becomes automatic. It is not planned, it is simply how winter nights are lived. Outside, the cold remains firm and patient. It does not change quickly. It does not offer relief. Winter nights are not dramatic, they are persistent. Inside, the family mirrors this persistence, resting steadily, conserving energy, allowing hours to pass without effort. Survival in these hours depends on calm and on the ability to wait without tension. It depends on the willingness to let the night continue without fighting it, without trying to force comfort where comfort does not exist. As the night holds steady, the atmosphere inside the house feels settled, stable and quiet. The body relaxes further into this stability. Breathing remains slow, muscles remain loose, awareness remains distant. The cold stays outside the blankets, outside the shared warmth, outside the compact position bodies have chosen. The house remains firm, walls thick, roof low, door closed. Everything that can be done has been done, and now the night is simply allowed to pass. Micro-awakenings are now almost invisible. If awareness flickers, it does so briefly, as a sensation rather than a thought. A faint coolness near the face, a change in pressure beneath the shoulder. The sensation fades quickly. The body responds automatically, adjusting fabric, shifting slightly, then returning to stillness. The mind stays quiet. There is no worry, no story, only the continuation of rest. Breathing continues as the most reliable sound, a slow tide that rises and falls. This rhythm fills the room completely. It becomes so steady that it seems to disappear, like the night itself. The body follows it naturally. Heartbeats remain calm. Temperature remains as stable as possible. The cold remains outside, controlled and distant. Inside, the family rests, steady and undisturbed. The night does not announce any ending. There is no change that signals morning. There is no shift in sound that suggests a new phase. The darkness remains. The cold remains. The house remains. This is what medieval winter nights often felt like. A long stretch of quiet that simply had to be lived through. Families accepted this because acceptance saved energy, and energy mattered. The goal was not comfort. The goal was to make it through the hours safely. Inside the house, everything remains balanced. Warmth is conserved through stillness. Cold is managed through layers. Safety is maintained through shelter and closeness. Nothing calls for attention. Nothing demands action. The family remains asleep, bodies conserved, breathing steady, as the long winter night continues, calm and unbroken, carrying them gently through its late hours. The atmosphere stays stable. The room stays dark. The cold stays outside. The family remains together, resting in a steady rhythm, allowing the night to hold its shape for as long as it needs to. Sleep remains deep, uninterrupted, and smooth. Nothing changes quickly. Nothing needs to change. The night continues, slow, patient, and quiet. The night remains quiet and steady, holding its shape without effort, as if it has settled into a calm agreement with the house and the people inside. Nothing new happens, and nothing needs to happen. The family stays asleep, bodies still, breathing slow and even, wrapped in layers that have not moved for a long time. The cold remains outside, present and patient, but no longer intrusive, no longer demanding attention. Inside the house, warmth is conserved carefully, not as a single source, but as a shared condition. It exists in the closeness of bodies, in the weight of blankets, in the still air that no longer moves. The body has learned to rest within these limits, to accept the cold without resisting it, because resistance costs energy, and energy must be saved. This understanding lives in habit rather than thought, shaped by many winters like this one. Breathing continues to fill the room softly, slow and steady, a rhythm that holds everything together. Each breath follows the last without interruption, without urgency. There are no sudden sounds, no movements that break the calm. The house feels settled, stable and reliable, doing exactly what it was built to do, holding back the worst of the cold, allowing the night to pass. The hearth remains cold, ash undisturbed, stones quiet. There is no flame, no light, no heat that draws attention. And yet the room does not feel empty. Warmth remains distributed through walls, floor, fabric and skin. This quiet distribution is enough. It has always been enough. Medieval families depended on this balance, not seeking comfort, only sufficiency. Darkness inside the house feels neutral and familiar. Without light, the room has no sharp edges, no clear distances. Space becomes something felt rather than seen, defined by proximity and warmth. This simplicity allows the mind to remain quiet. There is nothing to focus on, nothing to analyze, nothing to anticipate. Sleep remains smooth and uninterrupted. The family remains close not consciously but by necessity and habit. Children rest in the warmest places, protected by the bodies around them. Adults form a stable boundary of warmth, capable of holding still for long periods. This arrangement has repeated itself countless times, night after night, winter after winter, until it became automatic. It is not planned, it is lived. Outside, the world remains frozen and silent. Snow lies untouched. Wind moves slowly without urgency. The sky stays dark, nothing signals change. Inside, the family remains unaware of time passing. There is no sense of how long the night has lasted, or how much remains. Without markers, the night feels endless but not threatening. It simply exists. Occasionally, a tiny adjustment occurs, barely noticeable. A blanket settles, a shoulder relaxes, a foot presses closer to warmth. These movements happen without waking, without thought, and they end as quickly as they begin. The body knows how to protect itself, even in sleep. After each small correction, stillness returns. The house responds quietly to the cold wood contracting slightly, stone holding steady. These sounds are soft and familiar, part of the night's background. They do not disturb rest. They confirm that the structure is holding, adapting, continuing to do its work. The family trusts this without awareness, because trust has been built over many nights like this. The cold remains outside, steady and patient. Inside, it no longer feels like something to endure actively. It has become part of the environment, accepted and integrated into rest. The body no longer reacts to it. Sensation remains dull and distant. Sleep remains deep. There is no rush toward morning. There is no sense of approaching light. The night does not promise change and no one expects it. This acceptance allows the body to remain calm, conserving energy, conserving warmth. The goal is not comfort, it is continuity, allowing the night to pass safely. Inside the house, everything remains balanced. Warmth is held, stillness is maintained. Breathing stays slow and even. The family remains asleep, wrapped in layers, close together, protected by walls built for nights exactly like this one. Nothing demands attention. Nothing needs to be done. The long winter night continues, quiet and unbroken. It does not end here, and it does not begin again. It simply carries on, steady and calm, holding the family in rest as it always has. Inside this small medieval home, The cold stays outside, the warmth stays shared, and the night is allowed to remain exactly as it is. Good night.